We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabeg, Six Nations of the Grand River, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat Wyandot peoples, on whose traditional territories we gather and whose ancestors signed treaties with our ancestors. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Annesley Markdale. We hope you thoroughly enjoy tonight's performance, and to make your enjoyment complete, we strongly recommend you have a seat cushion from our friendly front-of-house staff. There are 2 wheelchair-accessible washrooms on this level, adjacent to the main entrance, and there are additional facilities on the church's lower level. In the highly unlikely event of an emergency, there are exits in each corner of the sanctuary leading to sidewalk, garden, and Highway 10. But please use the highway side doors only in an emergency. Lastly, the usual friendly reminder and admonition about phones and other noisemakers. Thank you.
Just gotta figure out how to turn my phone off. Yes. Do not disturb. There we go. Good evening. Welcome to Annesley and to AHI, Affordable Housing in Grey Highlands. My name is Michael Copeman. I'm a citizen. Been here for 35 years now. And I got to join this committee, headed up by Mr. Reid Dennison, who is our fearless leader. Also like you to meet Emmett Ferguson, also with the corporation, Mr. Helmut Mayer, another member of the corporation and the committee, Alan Avis, architect in residence, and Jeff Van Giem, sitting over here. Cindy Van Wunderen couldn't be here tonight. Who am I missing? Oh, Don Coplin, also in poor health, would like to be here but cannot. And I'm going to just I've introduced everyone, so I'm going to let Reid take things off here, and we'll get going. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. Please.
I think red is not good.
These are the cursors. So
Yeah.
That goes that way.
Okay.
Just point it up there.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out to participate on this wintry night. My name is Reid Dennison, and I serve as president of AHI, Affordable Housing in Grey Highlands. I moved to Flesherton with my wife, Cara Sullivan, back there with the camera, 11 years ago, as of next week. I'm a retired senior with work experience in film and television and building and renovations, with the 2 careers overlapping sometimes in the case of a couple of building shows I worked on. So the opening discussion is, what is the state of affordable housing in Grey Highlands? We thought we'd just start off with you. What's your experience? I like to say that everybody knows somebody who's having a hard time finding housing, so we'd like to hear from you first.
We've set up these microphones. If you want to make your way. Questions are, what is the state of affordable housing in Grey Highlands from your perspective? And we want to know what you're seeing personally or in your community. That's why you're here.
Is this on?
Yeah, please.
My name's Erica Ferguson. I work as a physician at Bright Shores in Markdale, and I've heard personally about nurses who aren't able to afford to work in this community or live in this community. They can work here, sorry. They just can't live here. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So we have people who are giving their careers to us, and they can't afford to be here. So.
Check, check. Is this all right? So maybe if people come up to the mic, just move in on a little bit. Hopefully we can all share some thoughts. Anyone else? The floor is open. By all means, thanks.
I don't have a lot to say, just that I know one person who lives in his car.
Hello there. My name's Joanna Noble, and I've lived in Grey Highlands my whole life, closer. And so personally, what I'm seeing is that anyone my age or younger working a very decent job cannot afford $1 million house. Like, it's absolutely unreasonable. My career is I design and build homes. So I know what it takes to build these things, and yeah, it's quite heartbreaking to see how hard people are trying and not being able to make ends meet. I have friends who go without meals. It's that bad. So anyway, I think this could be a great opportunity for our community to do a solid for one another and actually provide something that can be utilized and give people hope, really.
Hi, my name's Rebecca. I work in social housing in Owen Sound, actually, so I just want to note a little things that I've been seeing in the community here. Oh, sorry. Is this better? So when I started in that program about 10 years ago, we could rapid rehouse someone easily within 1 to 2 days. That's how easy it was to take someone off the streets and put them into our housing. Nowadays, we're looking at months it takes us to rapid rehouse someone. It's just not possible in this environment anymore. No one on social assistance, no one on lower income can afford what our rents are nowadays. What used to be $600 is now $1,600 without question. And so we're seeing these homeless individuals stay on our streets for months and months, where it used to be just days. And that's affecting our community across the board. So I just wanted to note that as well, add that to that.
I just wanted to, I guess, reintroduce Jeff Van Heem, who works for the Community Health Center here in Markdale and has an inside look at the situation here. Jeff, would you mind just saying a few words?
Sure, thank you. I didn't actually have to say a lot because it was already, a lot of it was said. But I think when we look at affordable housing, we're looking at a number of different people or a number of different groups. Every day I work with people who have very low income, who are unhoused, who are barely housed, who are one paycheck away from losing their house. But we also work with seniors as well too, living on a pension, Canada Pension Plan, old age security. With the amount that they receive on that, it's very hard for them to remain housed. We know that housing is very important because without being housed, it just adds a lot more to what we need to do. I'm glad that Dr. Ferguson is here because I'm sure she can talk a lot about what happens within the emergency rooms or hospital visits because of housing. We also talk, I'm glad it was brought up as well too, we work with a lot of people who are working full time and still cannot afford to buy a house. I don't know how you can do it. I've got numbers, I've got all kinds of numbers about affordability, about mortgages, rents and things like that I could bring up, but I'm not going to do that. But we, young families, we've got families that transition from one part of the province or the country to come here and go, whoa, what the heck? How come prices are so high here compared to other places? So it's not just a very specific group, but I do want to make sure that people understand that there is a homelessness issue within Markdale and the surrounding area. We work with them all the time. One of the good things or bad things about it is that they keep themselves invisible a lot of times. So you don't see it. It's not like they're sleeping on park benches, you know, the traditional, what you see in the TV shows, movies, in the streets and things like that. They're not sitting on the corner. But there are many people that are unhoused here, and that is something that is a night like tonight. Can you imagine what you might have to do tonight with the temperatures that we've got? So these are just some of the different things. I've got all kinds of information, I've got all kinds of numbers. I could stand here all night. I don't think that's what we want to do, but if anybody wants any more information about any of this, please feel free to meet with me, talk to me, whatever you want. I can help with that. So.
Thanks, Jeff, and I'm going to cover some of that in my portion. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak at this point? Yeah, come on up to the microphone.
My name is Sharon Wickens. I really feel it's really hard with one grocery store in Markdale. The prices there are not for our local community. They're for people traveling through Markdale. I do not know how anybody on a fixed income that are trying to cover their rent and buy their food, and then even anything else they may need. It's very hard for that, and we need to have some discussion about that too.
Thank you. All right. So, I'd like to take you through a brief look at our mission and our story, the crisis and the opportunity, and how we got to where we are today as a volunteer-run nonprofit corporation in a position to own and develop a prime site in Markdale for affordable housing. Over 2 years ago, the Grey Highlands Municipal League, led by Dave Meslin, thank you, Dave, hosted a public event to generate fresh community initiatives. One of them was our affordable housing group, initially focused on the soon-to-be vacant hospital site. The group quickly agreed on a mission statement to establish and sustain more affordable nonprofit housing in Grey Highlands. Here I want to point out the word sustain, because we mean to create permanently affordable homes. If we do it right, they can even become more affordable over time. More on that later. In time, we expanded our scope to look at all surplus public land and buildings in Markdale. While we were doing that, we set out to learn as much as we could about how not-for-profit housing projects get built. After working on this for a while, two things became clear. We needed to incorporate as a nonprofit, and we needed to pursue an agreement for some property in order to be taken seriously. When Bright Shores Health formally declared the old hospital property surplus, we decided to act, in hopes that it could be acquired at low cost. We chose to focus on developing affordable nonprofit rental or co-op housing rather than the attainable home ownership model made famous by Habitat for Humanity. Again, because we want it to be permanently affordable. We are open to working with a provider of supportive housing to make up part of the funding in a mixed income project. I've jumped up one, haven't I? Oh, I really jumped ahead here. Okay, in time, we expanded our scope to look at all surplus public land and buildings in Markdale. While we were doing that, we set out to learn as much as we could about how nonprofit housing projects get built. Okay, no, I'm reading from the same slides. Excuse me, folks. Our research has shown that there is an affordable housing crisis in our communities. The iceberg is a useful metaphor to understand this. Everyone has an uncomfortable feeling when they see one nearby. But how do we really know we're in a crisis? There is the obvious. More use of food banks by working people, for example. But there are also many things we don't necessarily see, like the struggles of small businesses to find employees due to the shortage of available, affordable rentals. Around here, the homeless and underhoused don't make themselves obvious, but social service workers have many stories of clients who are couch surfing or living in broken down campers on backcountry road allowances. A lot of us live in homes we own. And yes, many homeowners live on tight budgets too in order to afford their mortgages. Half of all Markdale residents would pay more than 30% of household income for the current market rental rates. But when you zero in on just those residents who are tenants, the affordability crisis really comes into focus. A quarter of renters, that is, the people who provide farm and manufacturing labor, staff, our health or food services, and our stores, along with young people, retirees, disabled, and unemployed, they're being severely squeezed just to have access to basic housing. Even unaffordable rental housing in Markdale and Grey Highlands is sparse. We all know someone living in substandard and often overpriced housing because there is nowhere else to go. The RHIS average listed rent reported here, and this information comes from Grey County. The average listed rent reported here is based on only 5 one-bedroom listings reported over 1 year. Only 5. We had originally identified 5 publicly owned sites in Markdale, but most were found to be unavailable for various reasons. For example, the old Beavercrest School, now torn down. One promising site is the county-owned parking lot on Main Street by the rail trail. Grey County will be taking action to prepare this site for eventual affordable housing development. But the former hospital became our #1 choice because of its size and the fact that it is ideally situated, close enough for walking to work, school, shopping, churches, recreation, and healthcare. The time is right for this now. Senior levels of government are working to address the crisis. New federal programs have come into being, which we'll talk about in a separate section later on. There it goes. Oh, it jumped again. It's 12. Sorry. Okay. There are many organizations we have reached out to or connected with over the last 2 years, which some are listed here. And a shout out to Mayor McQueen and members of council who are here tonight, well, all members of council, but especially those here tonight. And also to Dave Meslin, who's been assisting and encouraging us in getting the word out for this meeting. We believe that although there is development and construction experience in our community, we need to work with an experienced developer of not-for-profit housing to guide us through the development and construction phases of our first project. Recently, the Community Foundation, Grey Bruce, under Executive Director Stuart Reed, there's Stuart, initiated the creation of the Grey Bruce Community Development Corporation, for the purpose of developing community not-for-profit housing, and which will be headed up by Ryan Deska, who was meant to be here tonight, but unfortunately had to attend a funeral. While the Grey Bruce Community Development Corporation is too new to fully take on this project, the foundation will be assisting us with our fundraising efforts, among other needs. More on that later. On July 18th, AHI met with Bright Shores Health CEO Ann Ford, along with Grey Highlands Mayor Paul McQueen, to present our case for no-cost site succession for the purpose of affordable rental housing development. They were attentive and interested, but made it clear that their perennially cash-strapped organization was wanting a small financial lift from the sale of the property. Fair enough. The property was finally listed in late December, and AHI scrambled to put together a bid with expert guidance from commercial real estate agents Matt Webb-Smith of Sutton Real Estate and Newt Dunberg of Colliers. And I think, yes, there they are. I'm happy to report that our bid was accepted on December 30th. We have until March 2nd. Thank you. We have until March 2nd to determine the state of the site and its viability for housing. And if all goes well, we will close this deal at the end of June. Now please welcome Emmett Ferguson, who will go over some housing terms and some frequently asked questions, prepared by Cindy Van Wonderen, who could not be here tonight. That's a bit twitchy.
Whoa, okay. Thanks very much, Reed. I'm Emmett Ferguson. I live in Kimberley. Many of you may know me. I grew up in the Valley, but I'm here tonight talking about affordable housing. So, what kind of housing are we talking about? Why are we talking about rental housing? What do we mean when we say affordable? What is not-for-profit housing? Why now? Why here? We've just heard what our mission is to establish and sustain more affordable, nonprofit rental housing in Grey Highlands. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we mean when we say that. So the first question is, where are we trying to be in the market? Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation has provided this neat little diagram, I love the visual, to show the housing continuum. All the way at the left side, we know people are in crisis in their community. They suffer from homelessness. We don't really have an emergency shelter that I'm aware of in Markdale. There are some obviously in Owen Sound and in Grey County. We also think about transitional housing where people are coming off the street or out of crisis. They might need a place to stay for a short period of time where there are abundant services ready to connect them to the rest of their lives. Then we move into supportive housing where people who might have significant long-term disabilities, chronic conditions, or other things like that need a place where they can live and they can get access to services on site. Those might be medical, they might be social services, they might be any kind of thing. That's not really what AHI was formed to do, right? We're not a medical healthcare team. We don't have any agreements with the health system. We're not even community housing in the sense of this continuum, which is housing that's owned by municipal corporations and run for people with low income, right? We're talking about not-for-profit, affordable rental on the market in that second to last piece on the right-hand side there for affordable housing. So that's really where we're positioning ourselves. It's not market housing, right? We're on the affordable side, but it's not for profit. It's not a municipal project. What do we mean when we say affordable? So this is again based on Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. They assess that affordable housing means it's housing, it's probably modest housing that costs no more than 30% of before tax monthly household income. Right now we saw that would be, maybe $800 a month for a median or below median income in Grey Highlands right now. It's also important to note that when CMHC makes these metrics, they're always based on the last census. So even today, the affordability for CMHC is benchmarked to the last census. So those numbers are old, right? Deeply affordable thus means it's pretty significant, right? CMHC also talks about rent that is at or below the average market rent of a unit in the regional market area. That's basically a way of saying, is it below average price, right? Which is pretty common sense. I think as far as we go, we're trying to find somewhere in the middle, right? Again, it's not subsidized housing. We're not intending to take on any sort of ongoing donations or subsidies from any level of government necessarily. So really what we're talking about is low end of market or below that. And basically offering that within a corporate model that will hopefully gain a modest surplus, but not be just a profit-making venture. So what is not-for-profit housing, right? Again, Ontario benefits from a nonprofit housing association, so there's lots of these nonprofit housing groups that live and operate in different communities all across the province, and they have an association called Ontario Nonprofit Housing Association, or ONFA for short, and they define nonprofit housing as community-based affordable rental housing provided by nonprofit corporations, overseen by a volunteer board of directors. So that's really what we're trying to be and become. There's also a number of planning or construction terms that we might hear bandied about this evening, so I'll just go through those quickly, right? Purpose-built rental just means we build the building with the intention of renting out the rooms. We're not building it with the intention of selling the units off or indeed making some kind of co-op situation. That might be possible, but right now we're talking about purpose-built rental. Mixed-use development, when we're talking about that, it's really including both residences with street-level retail or commercial opportunities. Again, something we're deeply considering, again, based on the location of the site we're discussing. Adaptive reuse, that's the concept of converting the building without total demolition. We're not sure that that's possible, but it's an idea. Modular construction would be a building that consists of some kind of factory assembled subunits that are shipped to the site and then assembled. So those could be panelized, right? You get your floor, your walls, your ceiling, they ship out, they slap them together, bam, you got a building. You could also do volumetric, right? So that's where they do the floors, ceilings, and walls in subunits, and they ship them along the roads, and then they just stack them where they drop. We're also talking about mixed income housing. So that's where a single development might include both below market and rental units. So why is this needed, right? Why won't the market take care of this? Our position is we are offering a market solution. We will be offering rentals in the open market. The for-profit incentive for builders is to keep costs low and prices high, right? Get the biggest margin for your buck. Nonprofits have the same cost incentive because they don't generally have a lot of money. But tenants are the ones who benefit from any savings we're able to make more than any shareholders that are at the table. Why do we need land now? Ownership of property gives us access to federal and provincial loan and other grant programs that are contingent on you having possession and ownership of a site. If we could get this land for $1, that would be amazing. Probably not going to work out. We're going to figure out how much we can afford, and it's going to either come or go, right? We also know that Build Canada Homes is a new federal agency that's been created to support affordable housing at scale, prioritizing those modern methods of construction. So basically, if we don't do it soon, we might miss that agency as it goes. Do we have the capacity to take this on? Right now, there are 3 directors. So we're a small organization as far as the law is concerned, but we know we're not on our own. We have some volunteers already working with us. We're hoping more of you will join us tonight. We know that this is going to take time and it's going to take patience. We've been at this 2 years already, and we'll be lucky to get anything built in the next 3 years. I brought that up with the committee when we first started. I said, if any of you think we're going to be here or we're going to be done this job in 5 years, you should probably go home, because it's just going to take time. But we know we're going to build as we go, right? It's just bricklaying. We got to take one brick, stack it on the last. We do have belief in our mission, and we have trust in ourselves, and we hope that's enough. This is a question we get a lot, right? A lot of people want to see that efficiency, right? That you're not just tearing down what was and putting up something new and flashy, or maybe not so flashy. We're working on this. We have hired people to come and do some of the early phase assessments. We're taking a close look at it. We're only going to be keeping any of that building if there is a potential to save costs in the end. How are we going to be choosing people? As I said just now, it's likely going to be similar to any apartment building you might apply to. We're focused on we're not focused on any particular kind of tenant. So we're really just trying to build the simple availability within the affordable market of Markdale. The majority of the units are likely to be market priced. Most often, in order to get the capitalization, like we're talking probably tens of millions of dollars for construction costs at this point. In order to get that done, we're probably going to end up around, our objective is 70% market, 30% affordable. We're going to do our best to make that number better, but generally in the sector, and if you're getting mortgages from Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation, the expectation is minimum 70%, 30%. We also know that this is happening, right? There's the Markdale Downtown Vision. We think we have some significant contributions we can make, and specifically, the guidance within that vision was to provide focus on mixed-use multi-story buildings along Toronto and Main Streets with a variety of commercial and community uses on the ground floor and residential units on the uppers. Pretty much our idea. I mean, they had it first, but we're okay to ride some coattails now and again. Also to encourage redevelopment of underutilized or vacant sites, right? That site's been sitting there for ages, and it's slowly falling over. So we think it's a great opportunity to maybe give it a nudge and build something new for the next generation. As far as heritage structures, I do sit on the Grey Highlands Heritage Corp Advisory Committee, and we'll obviously be looking at that closely as time goes on. And then finally, excuse me, I should have brought some water, to encourage more compact and multi-unit forms of housing as a transition from mixed-use areas to existing neighborhoods. Again, something we would definitely be considering as we're trying to build 80 or more units within the new development. Here's our next discussion question. What else do you want to know about where we've been, or broadly about not-for-profit housing? And again, please come to the floor. And I'll thank you, Dave. Come on down, ask some questions if you like.
Hi, my name is Francine Cazo. I've been here for 5 years, so new to the community, got really welcome when I moved around, so I love this area with all my heart. What I have for questions for you, I know it might be not complete topic, but when you're saying affordable housing and you want to select your tenants, you do realize that 3/4 of those people don't have good credit. And that means the parents have to co-sign, and most of the times those parents are in the same situation. So how are you going to deal with that?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't have a great answer for you tonight.
Yeah.
So that's fair. But I mean, I think we're just going to be opening the market and try to get as many people as we can who need the space.
Okay. And the bottom level, as you said, you want it to be retail space.
If possible, yeah.
Is the retail space going to be also fair market value rent, or will it be the atrocious rents that some of these businesses are closing because they can't afford to pay the rent anymore? For example, Jude's is closing because he can't pay the rent. So it goes both ways. It's housing, but it's also for our businesses to stay in town to make the town more favorable to stay in.
For sure.
That's it.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Yep.
Hi, good evening. When you're doing the affordable, which I think is super, would you consider also making them accessible?
Yep.
Because it can't cost more to put a plug at this level or a light switch at this level for someone in a wheelchair than down here, that sort of thing, and wide enough for, yes, I think that's super. And I think one of the benefits that you have is that these ridiculous rental prices, most of them are landlords that don't even live here. You guys do. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, as it goes to accessibility, I think our intention is for a minimum 20% barrier-free, likely higher if we can afford it, but definitely looking and making sure that the units are as accessible as we can make them throughout the build. Yeah. Any questions? Dave?
I just want to say thank you. I have so much, I live across the street from the site, and I have so much gratitude for what you're trying to do. I can't imagine how much effort this takes, and courage and chutzpah, and I think this is the type of project that makes a community really special. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for now? Oh, yep. If anyone wants to go after him, maybe come up and form a line.
Yeah, so a few questions here. So 30% if you're hoping to be affordable, right? With long-term tenants, they have legal rights. So what is your economic model going to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road when the cost of everything goes up, maintenance increases, the cost of utilities increase? So how are you going to constantly adjust to market prices when you got long-term tenants coming in?
Yep, so generally in any rental situation, most often you're going to have a modest annual increase. Usually that's 2 to 4%. So that's probably what we're going to be expecting throughout the building. And that'll mean that as the general as inflation takes place, we're going to be offering at the same place in the market overall over a long period. Does that make sense?
But we've all seen our government isn't always the greatest with inflation. So if inflation drastically increases 4, 6, 10% over the years, and the rent is only going to go up 2 to 4%, that's not an economically viable model. On a large scale, you're talking decades down the road, because we can't know what the government is going to do for economic policies from day to day anymore.
Yep, I mean, you're right. Oh. Sure, Reed wants to say.
So we're all subject to inflation, and we're just a bunch of human beings trying to build housing. We're going to be subject to inflation. But what we won't be subject to is increases above inflation. And that's driven by scarcity and profit taking. And that won't be a problem for us. That won't be an issue for us. So I lived in a co-op, a nonprofit co-op, for about 30 years. And I observed over time that our rents our housing charges, as we call them, went up gradually, year to year. And while all around us, things were going through the roof just because of scarcity and profit taking. So that's the thing that separates us.
But now the world and Canada is in a much more unpredictable and precarious situation than we've been in the last decades.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, is this model going to be sustainable for decades when we don't know what's going to go on south of the border, or we don't know what international trade is going to be taking place from day to day, right?
I can't answer that question, and I don't think anyone can answer it.
There's so many unknowns and so many questions, but what really counts is that we're trying to care for the people who are our neighbors. And that's what you're modeling here. And there will be lots of ways to research how you're going to figure out how to make things work. But your dedication is inspiring. And if we don't try to help our neighbors, then we're all lost.
Okay. Now we have Alan Avis coming up to talk about design possibilities and concepts.
To give me a driver's license or a lesson here. Got a lot of material here to present tonight, but I'll keep it short. My history in this building, the hospital site, goes back quite a ways. I was actually born in it in the very first year it opened. Look who's talking. I was raised in Flesherton, and after finishing university, I opened up my own architectural practice in Goderich in 1993. And I ran that for about 20 years. And it is now going on under new ownership with a long-term staffer that I had hired in the earlier years. I joined AHI in 2024, in part with the invitation of Reed, but housing is something I've always had an interest in, and hence the career I chose. And certainly watching pricing for construction and a lot of excessive building that was well beyond what's required to get just basic housing in play that most people can access. So it's always been something I've been very interested in. And I offered to share my skills that I had developed over my career to the committee to see if I could help with exploring ideas on how the site might be developed, different forms of housing that could be considered. So I'm going to do a really quick run through on, oh yes, magic point. First of all, just very basically clarifying the property itself in terms of the yellow outline. And it's got the original hospital building to the left in basically an L-shaped, if you like, with the addition, or with the, eventually the additions that included over to the Penny Saver, or Pennywise building where the Pennywise store was in, and then of course the rest was a parking lot and yards. This is a great opportunity for a large, substantial property, 3 street frontages, located right downtown. There's so much potential for this site, and housing is just the ideal solution. As already mentioned, probably some kind of what we refer to as the mixed-use site, whereby there would be some commercial portions in there, be it retail, as mentioned. It could be services of various sorts. We're not quite sure. But the idea would be that in part that some of those types of uses would again help to fund some of the other effort in keeping the residential component as affordable as possible. The site itself, as noted on the side over here, it's fairly large, just under 2 acres. The existing building has a footprint of approximately 21,000 square feet accumulated, and the overall building is about 37,000 square feet. And when I mention that in part because some of the images that I get to in a moment will show some fairly large buildings which might provide even greater square footage overall as residential. I'll get used to it yet. A few years ago, the visioning, public visioning sessions that were held here in Markdale were quite illustrative of what could happen. And the red arrow over to the yellow structures shows the hospital site with a potential offering there of some form of 2, 3, 4, 5, perhaps 6-story residential buildings on it. And as one can see, this envisioning saw that higher, denser forms of building would occur closer to Highway 10. What we're proposing is quite consistent with the visioning process. So one of the earliest schemes that took a look at was the idea of just very simply townhouses. Given the size, and again, just to get our heads into the size of that property and what potentially could happen. And this scheme is showing that there could be 37 townhouse units, and those townhouse units potentially could have 2 units in each one, so they'd be what they refer to as stacked townhouses, and therefore there could be about 70 housing units, something of that scale. This kind of build would allow for phased construction, which might be useful from a funding and overall execution point of view. And again, these are just concepts. What you don't see here, of course, is parking on site, but provision for perhaps ramps to go for underground parking as a potential solution for that. And once part of this, I think we're trying to do is not only affordable, but very attractive, functional housing, and try to keep the site as green as possible. Perhaps there could be community gardens on it, there could be playgrounds as illustrated, and that sort of thing, so that it is very much like a little micro community in that sense, not just simply a bunch of buildings going up filled in with asphalt around the rest of the site. Scale of that sort of development could be along this type of illustration, two-story buildings generally, porches and such offering back to the street. It could be quite attractive in its total scale. Another possibility was looking at creating multiple buildings on site. This particular scheme, as you'll notice, retains the existing hospital structure footprint with portions of the existing property or the buildings removed. So reuse of the building, it could possibly be an outcome. Once again, as already mentioned, we've started with the investigations with some testing for hazardous materials and such to see what's going to be involved in reusing the building, and environmental studies and such as an important next step. So as a combination, I'm showing here that there could be existing two-story hospitals stay in place, maybe 26 apartments might be readily put into that building. There could be additional buildings, 2 to 4-story, 5-story buildings, just with multiple units. And they're, again, getting probably in that same neighborhood of about 70 dwelling units provided. The buildings, given that they're smaller, might have some kind of a appearance that with the articulation and the forms of the buildings, they could be of interest, not just bland buildings, balconies incorporated, so that individual units would have their own outdoor living space, and then of course with the ground plane as green as possible. And this one is the complete replacement of all the structures on the site and perhaps putting in one larger building. And this scheme would again get into probably in that neighborhood of maybe well above the 80 unit count. Some of the parking would still be underground, but a fair amount of it could be accommodated on surface, and we do show the playground once again with some potential for gardens and other green space. A lot of time when looking at that kind of building that's probably 4 stories to 6 stories in height, and quite often there's concerns expressed about the building's too big. It's going to overpower the street, the downtown. There's increased traffic and such. Those issues would be dealt with through the design process. But this is an example of one build that was up in Ottawa, and with the intention of showing that, again, with proper design input, they can look attractive, they can really offer good living space that people are proud and happy to live in without going overboard in terms of the actual cost to construct the units. Another building, as a matter of fact, my firm designed this several years ago for a potential replacement project in Goderich. And it's a 6-story building, quite massive site it was on. But effort was taken in this case to try to step back the building through its height, break up the massing of the walls so that it doesn't have as much overpowering down at street level. Also, there was intention to try to create more storefront commercial blocks that are common in rural Ontario settings, Markdale included, with the front facades. Oh, no, we can leave it there. The other slide was just an overview, just a pause one, and that was basically just to do a quick recap there that with any development that's going to occur, there will be some lengthy processes involved with doing, first of all, we have to determine what we're building, what form it's going to take, how many units and such. And then as part of that whole process too, would be having to rezone the property and get through all the various approvals and such farther down the line. So there's a lengthy process ahead to get this project kicked down the street. And that's where Emmett was talking about months. It's well beyond months. It's going to be years and counting to get things happening. We're hopeful that the project will be of importance in the community and with the political leadership, that efforts can be made to try to facilitate the progress through those steps to the greatest extent possible. One of the first things up would be a pre-consultation meeting we'd like to get going with the municipalities so we can determine what the hurdles are and the hoops that have to be gone through to get through the various processes. So we're hoping we can get that in place fairly soon. So I guess, did you add anything or not? No. So I could open it up if there's any particular questions to that portion of the presentation.
In the last slide, you can see there's a building to the north. Maybe it was for the ambulance station. To the north of Isla Street, that small building that maybe was.
Yeah, that's the ambulance station. Correct?
Yeah, could that be part of the project if it is part of? Oh, it's separate.
Yeah, it was listed for, and sold as a separate parcel from the hospital property itself. So that the question was about the former ambulance station down in here with the parking lot that was used in combination with the ambulance station and the hospital parking.
Just want to echo, thanks for all the work. First up, too, this is so inspiring, and these designs, just seeing ideas come to life, are just amazing. One thing, I also was born at the Markdale Hospital, so I share that with you, and grew up in this region. In 2017, I moved back and I built a house, and in my own research to be economical, I built a passive solar house, and not to be fancy, but to have utilities that are $100 to $200 max each month, all inclusive. So when I think about, housing for our community, and I think about those who are already, struggling with cost, I really am excited about this model. And, Passive Design Solution out in Nova Scotia, they've done a lot of affordable housing and even lower forms of housing. So I'm just curious if you guys have looked at some of those types of designs and possibilities, not for the fancy environmental necessarily outcomes, although I'm in for those too if they work, but really just for that long-standing cost savings.
Thank you. Those are really great points. Certainly, it would be ideal to shoot for the passive house design standard. With Passive House, it's more than just well, it's far from being a government-type program with just a bunch of points saying one has to hit this to get a gold bar sort of thing. Passive House has very meaningful standards in it that the building is measured to in the years following construction to make sure it uses no more energy than it was designed for. And all of that, and it's very common in Europe as a standard, is intended to reduce the energy consumption to operate the building over its lifetime. And that's what Passive House really does start to measure, is the entire lifetime of a property. And yes, to the greatest extent possible, efforts of that sort would be incorporated. And more that's becoming standard design practice. And certainly that would, and looking at durable materials so that, yes, it's inexpensive to put on vinyl siding, but the life cycle costing of that is very steep because it's very maintenance intensive, short life, et cetera. So there's got to be a balance in the building design at through that process, and that we're a little ways from that, but it's definitely going to be on the agenda to seriously look at, to incorporate in the projects. Yes, just Reach reminded me that in October, or August, I guess it was, the committee went up to a house builder that has a manufacturing plant up in the Muskoka region there, and Took Tree is the company name, and they are Passive House qualified. And it was really interesting to see that a small operation, their site that they operate on wouldn't be any bigger than the hospital property, and they crank out 100 houses a year in panelized form out of there, and they're all Passive House rated property or houses. So it was quite inspiring to see that, and I think the committee really benefited from seeing that in process.
Any other thoughts on the building? What could a good not-for-profit rental development do?
I guess if we're talking wish lists here, why not talk about solar? I'm part of the Grey Highlands Climate Action Group, and we're investigating opportunities for increasing the photovoltaic potential of Grey Highlands. And one thing that you have to have to put solar on your roof is a relatively new roof. So if you're building new buildings, then that provides an excellent opportunity to put solar panels up there. So, and there are lots of grants available now, and there are co-ops that we can partner with. And so I just want to put that bug in your ear. I'm sure you guys have considered this before, but just put it out there on the table.
Yep. And indeed, even in going into the wall solar panel systems perhaps as well, depending on orientation and such. Centralized geothermal heating plant would be another thing that we'd want to look at the time to see, to operate the entire building off a centralized plant as opposed to everybody having their own little unit. They'd still have an air handler in their unit, but basically it'd be generating all the heat and the cooling for air conditioning from ground source.
Wish list as well. So I work as a doctor at the hospital and I do primary care. I'm a family doctor. We don't have space at the clinic in Flushton for much more recruitment, and I know that the CHC also is strapped for space. So I would like to see a specific connection to the local healthcare ecosystem. I'm furious at Bright Shores that they didn't just say take this property, and I'm following up with them. But yeah, so I would say let's get some more primary care because we really need it.
Any other questions? No?
Blimey. Okay, I just before I introduce myself, wanted to make some comments also in regards of the wish list and some of the considerations. A lot of what you mentioned here is also required if we want to get any funding through Build Canada Homes or other providers. They are really focusing also on sustainability, environmentally friendly features within those new builds to fund them and to provide funds for it. And accessibility, yes. So, my name is Helmut Meyer. As you probably realize, I'm not from here, I'm not born here. So I came in 1990 to Canada as an employee of a large business software company called SAP. We established our subsidiary in Canada. I was part of the management team, and my task was to build the professional services. And what I successfully did, when I came, there were just 3 consultants in the company, and when I left, there were over 100. And beside the office in Toronto, we opened 2 offices, one in Montreal and one in Calgary. The plan was to return at that time after 4 years, was already were 2 years more than normal assignments would happen. My family and I decided to stay in Canada permanently, and we became permanent residents and citizens. After that, I started my own SAP consulting company. For a while, built up that with my partner, and then we sold it to a larger Canadian entity and moved on from there. 4 years ago, I moved to Markdale. I'm retired, 75 years of age, so I have a few years left in me to put some spare time into this efforts here. So my presentation tonight will show you what we have accomplished in the last months, our plan ongoing forward from due diligence to closing to construction. So activities in pursuit of purchase from Brightshore Sales System. As you can see on the next 2 slides, we have been extremely busy from mid-December to now, and we don't expect that it will be easing off soon. Besides deciding on the offer, defining our conditions, and finalizing the acceptance of the offer, we developed a plan for activities until the currently planned closing of June 2026. We contacted consultants and service providers, and that will enable and help us, some in parts of the different phases or others throughout our journey from our first ideas through to successful construction and moving in of the first tenants into the brand new affordable rental housing in Markdale, which we envision to be around for the long term. You see some terms there that are not all spelled out in full. So when you see DSS, that stands for Designated Substance Survey, ESA, Environmental Site Assessment 1, or Phase 1, and potentially a Phase 2, or most likely, depending on the outcome. This plan, I hope you can read it. So we are at the due diligence phase. So we had a site visit at the hospital. We had a walkthrough. We selected a consultant company to conduct the DSS and ESA1 substance study and environmental assessment. And as you can see, the deadline is March the 2nd, where we have to make a decision if we waive our conditions on the offer, if we try to ease them, or what other options we might have available. The bad news decision would be that we don't see availability to go forward because of maybe too high cost. Hopefully that's not the case. We are hopeful, and we are planning to pass that point. So just at the deadline of that phase is also a refundable deposit due that we then have to provide within a short period of time. So the next phase then be conducted from April to June 30th in my plan, and it's more aggressive, as you can see by the end dates, as maybe my colleagues. So I'm always in the mind, set targets and try to accomplish them and not go for the long run. And one of the reasons, in my belief, is also that we have to act faster than in the past. And we're also looking at council to help us in moving fast, because funding will be available most likely in the next 2 years. If we miss that boat, we have no clue what the future will tell, as somebody pointed out to us, and we need to get funding for this project to the maximum. So that's why we also have to think hard if we can do a phased development on this side, or if we should go for the maximum that we can build and get funding for, so that we are not in the situation that later on we cannot put the second, third phase on the side because of lack of funding. So much comments in regards to that. I have to turn, sorry, I have to turn around. My eye's not as good at seeing it up there. So the next milestone phase is coming up with the remaining purchase price and close the deal. At that point, we would be owners of the land. And this is one of the conditions, as mentioned before, to apply for any funding. During the next 4 months, I envision, as a suggestion, to develop the business plan together with the base design. So 66% of what's required in an architectural phase. And we get into some more details on the next slides, where you can see how we want to accomplish that. 4 months after, in that third quarter, we would then also start funding applications, and that should be ending at the end of the year. We should be in a position then to have confirmed the funding, so that further design development can also start in parallel, and find a funding confirmation by the end of the year, maybe at the beginning in the first quarter. It's the end of the first quarter, so that we can construction start in the second quarter of 27. Based on what we are trying to accomplish with modular construction, with some tools to help us in the design phase, we should be able to reduce the normal times in construction, and I will show you how we try to accomplish that. Social finance. I want to talk a little bit about how we can raise funds for social good. This is not open only to us, it's also open to any business that wants to fund purchasing or selling, lending, or investing purposes. Social sector can provide granting, philanthropy, donating, and purchase of service. And municipal government can help us in taxation, development fees, and up to granting. There might be other fees that they can waive for us. So we will meet often to come to agreements in your term so that we have some assurance for this project going forward, that we can rely on the support of the municipality. Where you see the hybrid space, that's where social finance is happening, when different parts come together for a common cause. So some terms about community bonds that you can see here. So we are planning to use community bonds to fund the land acquisition and the design of the development, to enable us to apply for funding of the construction project from federal, provincial, county, and municipality programs. If you want to learn more about community bonds, check it out on the website of Tapestry Capital or other sources that you find when you use Mr. Google. So here we are coming to the milestones, waiving of conditions deadline, where we need to raise funds. So we are in the process of talking to Grey Bruce Community Foundation and the Southeast Grey Community Health Center in establishing a donation trustee charity relationship that allows us to receive funds then for our different phases. So you can see we need $50,000 for study on closing costs. So far, $11,000 in donations are committed. We seeking short-term loans for further $50,000 fully refundable deposit on sale. So that would be, if it doesn't come to a close, those $50,000 would be refunded. But if it's not, then we're offering initial creditors to convert loans into community bonds if desired. On that part, we have $4,000 in commitments at this point. The community bond offering is also required for the milestone closing of the offer on June 30th, and the further development project we are planning to raise funds in the form of a community bond offering to enable us to apply for funding of the construction project from federal, provincial, county, and municipal purposes. I mentioned earlier that there are certain things that we can do to shorten timelines of design and actual also build. And there was some last-minute realignment, so that slide left the deck. But I can tell you that we had made contacts with a company that it's a major builder in Ontario that has also a non-profit unit that has developed tools that can aid us in the design phase, that normally 6 to 9 months time period, and shorten it by 3 to 4 months. So there's a little investment required for that as well, but we shorten the time, and time is money. With a modular concept in panelized construction, we also would be able to shorten that time. And yes, passive house as well as modular construction is approximately 10% more expensive than traditional stick work, but the time frame to get to the conclusion is way shorter. I also want to make some additional comments in regards to some of the questions or asked in regards of sustainability. Yes, we are considering all of those things. So we also consider solar on the panel for all the lighting inside the house and whatever is required to operate the building itself, not necessarily the apartment unit per se, besides the heating part. So the lighting would be still required also to have a contract with a hydro provider. I'm not sure that we can empower the entire building if we are thinking about potential, let's say, around number 100 units at this time. But everything else that lowers energy costs, that helps sustainability, we will consider so that it fits into the development cost that we can fund. So there may be some compromises we have to make. Our goals are high, and we hope we can achieve them. Also, there were some questions about durability of the organization. Our intent is it's for the long run. I think on any funding that we apply for, 25 years is a minimum. Our goal is more in the 45-year range, because the funding that we probably will get are based on 45 or 50-year mortgages. And when you have those terms, you can also consider the affordability part for such a still higher cost development. So this brings me to the end, and now we have another discussion point. How can we best approach raising money for affordable housing in Grey Highlands? If anybody has additional ideas to what I presented to you, please come forward.
So I saw that you guys incorporated the land transfer tax, right?
Yes.
Is there a way the Ontario government, we can do an application because it's a nonprofit for lower income housing? I'm sure that something can be done to reduce that land transfer cost.
Okay,
itself.
and the overall cost, if you look at it, we look what the actual amount is. We are talking about $8,400. Obviously, if we can save it, it would be great. So we need probably some political support to put some pressure on to somebody to say, I'm signing off on waiving the land transfer tax.
I know it's not much, but it's still like about 10 grand in your pocket at the end of the day that can be applied towards something else. That's all.
I fully agree.
Okay.
But we need support in that part. It's not happening by itself. And I don't think the Ontario government website has a form for that. Any other ideas?
It doesn't have to be about the question either, just if you have any thoughts.
Yes, Stuart.
Hi, I'm Stuart Reed. I'm from Community Foundation Grey Bruce, and we're really thrilled. I add my congratulations to those that have come before. I also wanted to mention that the Community Foundation has the capacity to accept all kinds of different assets in terms of liquefying and helping this cause. So you can consider things like RIFs or life insurance, real estate, appreciated securities. There's a lot of incentive in terms of avoiding capital gains on stuff like that. So thinking very creatively about what you might invest. And this whole project is really, it typifies this concept that we're promoting through our Community Development Corporation about community wealth building. And this is an instance of your community coming together and building something that's going to bring equity to Markdale. And as you said, you're in it for the long game. This is just the first building block in probably another few projects and all kinds of investment in Markdale where the profits are going to stay here and it's neighbors helping neighbors, right?
Yes.
And when we get to the point of raising a community bond, it's an opportunity to make some money here in your own community and to invest 5,000, 10,000, get 4, 5, 6% over this term you invest, and make some money and help out your neighbors. While I was sitting there, I was thinking, how do you make the community wealth building sound really simple? And we just came through that holiday season, and how many people watched It's a Wonderful Life? Remember that movie? It's a Wonderful Life. It's the Potter's Field versus the Bailey Savings and Loan, right? And that magical moment where people come in and they just give what they can to help their community because they're investing in themselves, they're investing in their neighbors, and that kind of wealth building is something that's going to be retained and it's going to have all kinds of ripple effects in the community as well. So avoiding the Potter's Field where, developer comes in and builds cookie cutter homes and all the profits go somewhere else. This is something that's going to open up the opportunity. The first project, of course, is rental, but we're hopefully going to open up the spectrum of home ownership for more and more people in this region too with future projects. So it's a very exciting thing, and I hope people are going to get on the bandwagon and get excited about how you can use whatever you have and invest it locally to really make something important happen that's going to be the first building block in something that could be transformational, not just for Markdale, but for our whole region. So we want to spread the word about these concepts. And thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thanks.
I have a question. Since it is the downtown core where it's going to be, will the structure of the building look like the buildings that are there now? Architecturally, instead of a big square box, will they have like round windows, some effects like the buildings have right now?
Okay. We're aiming for 4 to 6 stories. It's for us.
Because in the photos we've seen, they're just like square boxes.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if it could make it look like it belongs in the downtown core.
Let me respond to your question in that regard. So we are aiming for 4 to 6 stories. We need to create density because the needs are there. So if we stay in low-rise housing, we cannot
No, that's not what I'm
satisfy
saying.
the need. In regards to box-like buildings, well, the box-like buildings are already there. They are on Main Street all around. They maybe have only 2 or 3 stories, but they have a flat roof, look like a box.
Right.
They are just put together. We try to put design aspects into the building that will be pleasing and will fit, hopefully, into the neighborhood.
Now, regarding flat roofs, a lot of flat roofs do end up having a lot of problems down the road. And because of the weight of snow that we have up here, I was just wondering if a flat roof, if some type of angles could be put on these
Well, that's
instead of flat
something
roofs.
that we will consider during the design phase. We will evaluate if it's more appropriate to have a flat roof, put solar panels on it, and other things that can be there, or if it's better to have some sort of a sloped roof that then still can have the panels on it. That's all part of the design phase that we will go through. At the end of the day, we also have to weigh cost benefits and then decide on those. In regards of construction method, they have changed a lot over time. I am aware I always was not very fond of flat roof for own housing purposes, because in the past there were lots of issues with it. I don't believe they are in the same way. One other aspect on a flat roof, besides the solar panel installation, is you can also create a green roof. You can make it environmentally friendly and have a green space, but also on the roof would provide additional cooling aspects to the building. So there's many other things that have benefits on a flat roof versus a sloped roof.
Yeah, and some people do have the solar panels on a slope roof. Many of them do. So I'm just saying, because of the snow load that we've had in the last 2 years, I have myself incurred that problem with having a roof that doesn't have a high slope.
So we will consider that, but also think about on a sloped roof, we also have to then avoid that snow masses are sloping down.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And that could be a dangerous aspect if we have a walkway with stores, fronts, and people are walking.
Yeah, like
Because
some of them we
want
have right
also
now.
in our design incorporate the aspects of a walkable community.
Yeah, because when you drive around to other communities and it's a beautiful town, and then all of a sudden you see this big box, it really stands out. So I'm just wondering, if we could kind of put like round window, it's whatever you can afford, right? To do what you can to kind of incorporate it into the look of the town itself.
Yes, we will consider it. Any more questions?
I got one question.
Okay.
You guys have a great job. You guys are really doing something that's unique and I think really challenging. The bottom line is you need money, and there's a lot of wealth in this community as well as a lot of, do you have a fundraising committee? Have you identified people who can go out there and raise money for you? I mean, that's what you need.
Yeah.
And
Just responding to that question.
And it's not $11,000.
No, yeah. So this is where we start saying this is the next steps, right? We got to figure out how we're going to actually get the deposit in, right? That's $50,000 that we don't have. We need it as it's going to be a loan essentially. You'll see on all of your agendas at the bottom there is a QR code. You can use your smartphone to get through to our registration link. If you want to volunteer, if you want to get on our newsletter, if you have interest in donating, investing, or lending any money to this cause, you can follow through that link. There's also posters around in the corners with the same QR code. You'll also see the URL to the SurveyMonkey for that. But basically, we're going to be reaching out to everyone who registers through that in the next little while. So we're intending to do a bi-weekly newsletter. You're more than welcome to sign up just for that. Next week, we're going to be reaching out to people who register their interest as volunteers to assess your interests and your capacities in working with us over the next years. So whether it's regarding the design, right? Whether it's regarding the financing, we know we do need help in that regard. Right now, there's 3 of us. We're each putting in, a day or 2 of work on this every week, and we're not getting paid. So we're volunteers as well. We're going to be reaching out for donations as soon as we're able to offer charitable receipts. Stuart Reed is here tonight from the Community Foundation. Jeff is also here from the Health Center. We have a meeting with them in a week with a draft memorandum of understanding so that you can offer donations to the Community Foundation, get a charitable receipt for those, and that's going to help us with the closing costs. So right now, we've got about $11,000 in donations. We need probably another $39,000. Dig deep if you can. The next thing we're going to be doing is also reaching out for deposit lenders, and we're hoping to do that by Family Day. So that's going to be where we're basically going to be offering you the opportunity to loan us a bit of money until June, right? That money's going to come back. The next part is going to be working on the community bond offering. So that's going to be to get the money available for the sale and for the pre-construction design phase so that we can qualify to get the construction grants and loans. That's going to be probably, right now we've agreed in principle to give $600,000 for the property. We can offer less. There's no guarantee that Bright Shores will accept less. So That means we're going to be doing community bond offering probably in the $1 million range. That's going to be, I'm going to suggest, on a 5, maybe more than that term, probably 3, maximum 4% per year. And that'll be, again, an actual, like, it'll be a bond. It's a financial instrument. We'll either register it through Tapestry Capital, because they've already got the infrastructure in place to do that, but there's also nothing stopping us from doing that ourselves. It's just going to take a few months to get it going because we need the paperwork in order, right? We're not going to be, you can't just create a financial instrument overnight. So it's going to take a little time, but this is really the first of many community meetings we're intending to conduct throughout 2026. We've already applied for a community grant from the municipality just to get venue space across Grey Highlands so that we can have meetings like this for the rest of the year. Hopefully that is something that won't cost us money because we have so many expenses coming forward very soon. That's it. For tonight, you've got the QR codes. Please, we're going to stick around. You can come and talk to us. You can also email us directly. Reed is generally at ahighgray@gmail.com. But by all means, if you don't want to click through the QR code or fill out our survey, please come talk to us and we'll get your contact information tonight.
You can also talk to us. Each of us can also bring it up on the phone if you have not the ability to do it.
So we're going to stick around. We're all going to be just around for the next half hour. Open discussion time. We're going to shut off the live stream soon. And thanks for coming out tonight, everyone.
We'd also just like to thank Ansley for hosting us tonight, and Tim Reed up there, Tim Riley, I'm sorry, for doing a great job, Tim. Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for coming out. We really appreciate it. It's a great turnout, and so nice to see such support. We really appreciate it. These guys have been working in the dark for a long time, and I know they're happy to see your faces. So thank you.